My husband told me not to call him during his 15-day business trip, but I discovered he was on a getaway with his mistress. As soon as I confirmed the truth, I canceled his credit card and sold our Greenwich estate. The next day, I had 66 missed calls from him. He screamed, "Why did you suddenly cancel the card? How am I supposed to get back to the U.S.?" I said just one sentence that left them both paralyzed. As dusk began to settle, I was tending to the phalaenopsis orchids on the veranda. Just then, my husband, Michael, emerged, dragging a suitcase toward the front door. He was still in his suit, his tie slightly loosened. The scent of expensive men's cologne, of tobacco, and the weariness of a long day mingled, overpowering the clean fragrance of the orchids I had so meticulously cared for. For 10 years of marriage, I had grown so accustomed to this scent that I sometimes didn't even notice it, much like our marriage. He glanced at me, his gaze fleeting. "I'm leaving. This business trip is important. Some foreign partners are in town, and they want a geological survey of some land for a new resort development in Scottsdale. We're launching a new project." His voice was flat, devoid of emotion or fatigue. It was a simple notification, like a cold weather forecast. I nodded and walked over, pretending to adjust his collar. "Why so sudden? 15 days is a long time." Michael leaned back slightly. It was an almost imperceptible movement of avoidance, but I saw it clearly. "This project is top secret, you understand? I need to do a thorough investigation, and no information can leak." He took my hand, but his palm wasn't as warm as usual. "For security reasons, don't call or text me for these 15 days. I'll have my phone off to stay focused. I'll call you as soon as the work is done. The house and the garden are in your hands." I smiled, the smile I had practiced for the last 10 years. The smile of a wise, supportive wife. "All right, you're going to do something important. I'll be fine at home, so go have a safe business trip." The clatter of the suitcase wheels on the marble floor echoed loudly, followed by the heavy thud of the iron gate closing. This luxurious Greenwich estate was plunged into a chilling silence. I stood in the middle of the lavish living room, staring at my reflection in the large bay window. 10 years ago, I, Eleanor Vance, was an ambitious landscape architect with my own brand, Vance Landscapes. But because of Michael's words, "I need a strong support system at home," I gave it all up, retreating to become a full-time homemaker in this estate. I designed every corner of the garden, pouring my heart into every flower. I thought I was nurturing our home, but Michael's coldness had become more pronounced over the years. Dinners together at home dwindled, and any affection or concern had dried up. He left early and came back late, and the reason was always work. I blamed myself. Did I do something wrong? Or do all marriages wither like this over time? I tried to revive the relationship, only to be met with his indifference and, at times, irritation. Gradually, I grew tired too, and only silence remained in our home. This 15-day business trip and the no-contact request, strangely, instead of making me anxious, only made me feel a bone-chilling distance. 3 days after Michael left, the large house felt unusually empty. I spent most of my time tending to my orchid garden. It was the only peace I could find. The phalaenopsis orchids, the dancing lady lilies, and the purple dendrobiums I had specially ordered from a nursery in Oregon were in their full glory. As I was carefully wiping each leaf, my phone on the table buzzed with a notification. I assumed it was a marketing message and ignored it, but a second and a third buzz followed in quick succession. I sighed, pulled off my gloves, wiped my hands on my apron, and picked up the phone. On the screen were 3 identical notifications from the bank. My heart skipped a beat. They were transaction alerts from the supplementary credit card, Michael's black card, which I had given him for work-related convenience. My gaze locked onto the phrase, $5,000 charge at the Gilded Lily restaurant. The Gilded Lily. That name was like a needle piercing my eardrum. $5,000? I quickly checked the date and time. The transaction had happened just 10 minutes ago. With trembling hands, I called the bank's customer service center to confirm. The representative, after verifying, told me firmly, "Yes, Mrs. Sterling, a successful payment of $5,000 was made at the Gilded Lily restaurant on the Upper East Side, Manhattan." The Upper East Side, Scottsdale. I hung up the phone, and my entire body went cold. The fragrant scent of the orchids suddenly felt nauseating, suffocating me. I remembered the Gilded Lily all too well. 6 months ago, for our 10th wedding anniversary, I had shown Michael an article about this very restaurant. I had all but begged him, "Honey, let's have dinner here for our 10th anniversary." They say it's incredibly romantic, with a beautiful view of the city. At the time, Michael, his eyes glued to his computer, dismissed me without a glance. "Don't be ridiculous. Look at the price. A single meal costs a month's salary for one of my junior employees. It's a place for idle, rich people to show off." I tried to explain, "It's just once in 10 years, but he grew annoyed. "Don't be so extravagant and frivolous. We can use that money for something more useful." His words threw a bucket of cold water on my hopes. Our 10th anniversary ended with a regular dinner at home. I consoled myself. He's right. He's a practical man. He cares about big business, not trivial vanities. But today, my husband, who was supposedly doing a geological survey in Scottsdale, the same man who asked me not to contact him, was at the Gilded Lily and had just paid a $5,000 bill. What client was he entertaining to be so extravagant? My hands trembled not from anger, but from the chilling cold that crept from my spine to the crown of my head. Had I been living in absolute trust for the last 10 years, or in a perfectly wrapped deception? I looked at the pure white Phalaenopsis orchid in front of me. Beautiful, immaculate petals. But why did they suddenly feel so fragile, so hypocritical? He lied to me. Only this thought was clear, stabbing my heart like a shard of glass. He had deceived me. After the initial tremor came a chilling calm. Like when a person is severely injured, the pain comes later. For now, there's only numbness. I didn't scream or break things. I simply walked into the house and poured myself a glass of ice water. The cold water went down my throat, clearing my head, and my brain began to work. What should I do? Call him immediately and scream, "Where are you? What are you doing?" Only to hear another, more elaborate lie? I hadn't wasted the last 10 years on trust. I couldn't afford to be stupid and waste another second. The truth. I needed the truth. I opened my phone's contact list and scrolled through a multitude of familiar names. Mom? No. My mother has a heart condition. She'd get sick with worry. I needed someone with a cooler head, someone who could take action. My eyes stopped on the name Jessica Chen, attorney. Jess had been my best friend since college. Unlike me, who gave up my career at Vance Landscapes to choose family, Jess was a single, brilliant, and independent lawyer who despised hypocrisy. If anyone could help me right now, it was only Jess. I called. As soon as it rang twice, Jess picked up. Her voice was as cheerful as ever. "What's up? Did the lady of the manor suddenly miss her working-class friend, or do you have another flower planting project for me?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from trembling, but it was still choked. "Jess, are you free right now? I need your help." Jessica's voice on the other end immediately turned serious. She knew I wasn't joking when I spoke in that tone. "I'm at the office. What's wrong? Your voice sounds off." "What did he do, that husband of yours?" "I'm not sure." I tried to piece together the fragments in my head. Michael said he was going to Scottsdale for 15 days. He said it was a secret project and I shouldn't bother him with calls or texts. "Secret my ass," Jessica's voice rose. "That sounds shady. What decade are we living in that it's secret even from his wife?" I cut her off and got to the point. 15 minutes ago, the black card I gave him for work was used to pay $5,000 at the Gilded Lily on the Upper East Side. There was a silence for a few seconds on the other end. It was the silence of a lawyer analyzing a case. "The Gilded Lily?" Jess asked. "The French restaurant you wanted to go to for your 10th anniversary last year, and he told you it was extravagant?" "Yes, that's the one." My throat burned. "That son of a bitch. I told you not to trust your husband too much. $5,000 is definitely a problem. What do you want now? You want me to send someone over right away?" "No," I cut her off again. I didn't need a scandal at that moment. "I don't want to send anyone. I need the truth. You're a lawyer. You have your methods. Find out who he's entertaining there. The Gilded Lily is a high-end restaurant. They must have security cameras or a reservation list." "Understood," Jess replied concisely. Send me the card information, your account details, and a clear picture of Michael. I have connections there. But Ellie, are you really okay?" Jessica's voice was filled with concern. I looked at my orchid garden. The white petals were still beautiful. But why did they feel so luxurious and fragile? "I don't know," I said. "But don't worry, I won't fall apart." I hung up the phone. I knew that from this moment on my life would never be the same. I don't know how long I sat motionless on the veranda. The sun had set, leaving only an orange streak in the sky, heralding the long night to come. Tonight, the scent of the orchids was no longer fragrant but felt nauseating, suffocating. I didn't eat dinner. In the large house, only the regular ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall resonated. Each tick was like a hammer blow to my empty chest. I tried to deceive myself. Maybe it really is an important business partner. Maybe it's a female CEO Michael has to entertain. Maybe $5,000 is just a down payment for a huge contract. I tried to cling to that faint hope, but it was shattered when my phone buzzed. It was nearly 10 p.m., and I received a message from Jess. It wasn't a text. "Take a deep breath, sit down in a chair, then open it." My hands trembled. I had told Jess I wouldn't fall apart, but my body was betraying me. I felt the blood drain from my face, and my hands and feet turned cold. I clicked on the video file Jess had just sent. It was only 30 seconds long. The video seemed to have been surreptitiously recorded by a diner at another table or extracted from a security camera. The angle wasn't perfect, but those 30 seconds were enough to end my 10 years of marriage. It was Michael. He was wearing the same suit I had ironed for him that morning. He had taken off the jacket and looked relaxed. He was sitting in the luxurious classic space of the Gilded Lily, and he was not alone. Across from him sat a very young woman, with long, light brown hair, fair skin, and wearing a wine-red silk slip dress. I recognized this woman. My heart constricted. It was Chloe, the new intern at Michael's company. I had met her once about 3 months ago when I went to bring him lunch. At the time, Michael introduced her perfunctorily. "This is Chloe, an intern in my department." Chloe had bowed politely to greet me. "Hello, Mrs. Sterling. You're so lovely. With the delicious food you make for him, it's no wonder Mr. Sterling always praises you." In this 30-second video, Michael was using a silver fork to carefully spear a large piece of lobster and place it on Chloe's plate. He was smiling with a sweetness and affection. His eyes were full of a deep passion for Chloe, a look I hadn't seen in a long, long time, perhaps 5 years. Chloe leaned back and laughed heartily. Then she quickly leaned across the table and used her finger to gently wipe a bit of sauce from near Michael's mouth. It was a gesture of brazen intimacy. Michael didn't pull away. He took her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it. 30 seconds. The video ended. I dropped the phone onto the cold granite floor. It made a dry clack. I had been betrayed. It wasn't a business partner. It wasn't a middle-aged man's fleeting affair. It was a deep, secret relationship. He was using my money, the card I gave him to dine at a luxury restaurant and please a girl half my age. I felt a pain in my chest, but strangely, I couldn't cry. The tears had long since dried up. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. I had given up my brilliant career at Vance Landscapes. I sacrificed my youth to be the strong support system for this liar. I tended my own garden, only to discover there was a venomous snake in it. The phone was still lying on the cold floor, the screen now dark, but the 30-second video played over and over in my head, like a slow-motion film I couldn't turn off. Michael feeding Chloe, the doting smile, the kiss on the back of her hand. Each scene was like a blade stabbing my already calloused heart. I slid down the cold wall to the floor. This estate, this garden for the last 10 years, I thought it was my heaven and the result of my sacrifice. It turned out to be just a gilded cage, and I was a bird that had locked itself in, while the owner went to find another, younger bird. The phone rang. This time, the caller ID showed Jessica Chen, attorney. I took a deep breath, trying to contain the tremor that ran through my entire body. I picked up the phone and cleared my throat. "I got it. Did you see it?" Jessica's voice was urgent and filled with rage. I didn't answer. My throat was tight. That bastard. Michael, that goddamn bastard. Jess started cursing on the other end. She could never stay calm when she saw her friend being hurt. That girl is Chloe, the intern from his department. Her face looked familiar. What are you going to do now? Are you going to go home and smash everything? Jess, I interrupted her. My voice was hoarse but devoid of emotion, tearless. Huh? Jess stopped, surprised, probably by the excessively calm tone of my voice. Are you at the office now? Yeah, I'm here. I was waiting for your call. You're Milavier, right? Of course I am. What are you saying? I'm your friend, and... I took a deep breath. The cold began to spread from my heart throughout my spine. I don't need you to be my friend right now. I need you to be my lawyer. You're a lawyer, right? You need to be colder than I am. There was silence on the other end. I knew Jess understood. She switched from the state of a furious friend to that of a lawyer taking on a case. Speak. I'm listening. Jessica's voice had completely changed. It was sharp and professional. First, I stood up and walked to the mahogany desk where the house documents, savings books, and deposit slips were kept. Prepare the procedures to immediately freeze all our joint marital accounts. Freeze? Jess asked. Are you sure? If you freeze them, he'll find out immediately and call you. He'll find out, I replied firmly. But it will be too late for him to do anything. This estate is in both our names. The land my parents gave me when we married also became joint marital property after the marriage. I can't let him dispose of the assets, that man. I noticed the change in how I referred to him. My beloved husband, Michael, had died in that 30-second video. What remained was just a stranger named Michael Sterling. Understood, Jess replied. But to freeze joint accounts, we need a valid reason. You need to file for divorce for the court to accept the case, which would give us the legal basis to request an emergency freeze. No, I said firmly. Now is not the time to divorce. If I divorce now, I'll be giving him and that woman their freedom. I need another reason. I don't want to go to court yet. I looked around the well-appointed room. Jess, if I, as the primary cardholder, report to the bank that I suspect my husband is committing fraud or using marital property for illegal purposes, would that be reason enough for the bank to temporarily freeze the accounts? Jess was silent for a few seconds, thinking. Legally, it's sufficient. The bank has the right to suspend temporarily to protect clients' assets, especially if you're a VIP client. But it will cause a scene. I need a scene, I said. I want him to realize that I'm not the idiot he's been manipulating for the last 10 years. I hung up the phone with Jess. I didn't allow myself a second of regret or fear. If the pain doesn't kill you, it turns you into steel. And at that moment, I felt my heart had become harder than stone. For 10 years, I was a submissive wife. For 10 years, I took a step back, and this was the price I had to pay. I immediately looked up the number for Mr. Davis, the director of Premier Client Services at the bank. He had been the one managing my accounts for the last 5 years, always polite, with a gentle voice, calling me on holidays or my birthday to invite me to investment programs or just to send a bouquet of flowers. Now was the time for those premier services to be put to use. It was almost 11 p.m., but the phone rang only 3 times and was immediately answered. Mr. Davis's voice was still gentle. Mrs. Sterling, good evening. You're calling at this hour. Is there an emergency? I cut him off. My voice was surprisingly calm but left no room for interruption. Mr. Davis, I'm calling about an emergency. I need you to handle 2 things for me immediately. First, cancel the supplementary credit card immediately. The card number is... I clearly recited the numbers of Michael's black card, the numbers I had memorized from paying his statements every month. Cancel? Cancel it right now? Mr. Davis seemed shocked. Ma'am, this is a maximum limit VIP card, and Mr. Sterling is on a business trip. Could he have an emergency? I know. I cut him short, and I am requesting the cancellation. I am the primary cardholder. I have the right. Cancel it now. Yes, understood. I will take measures to block the card immediately. What is the second matter? His voice was already tense. The second matter is... I took a deep breath. I am Eleanor Vance Sterling, co-owner of the joint accounts. I clearly recited the numbers of the 3 joint accounts, including the checking account, the stock account, and the $75,000 joint deposit account. I am requesting the bank to apply an emergency measure to temporarily freeze all transactions from these accounts. This time Mr. Davis was silent for longer. I could hear him suck in a breath. Mrs. Sterling, could you tell me the reason? This matter is very complicated procedurally, as Mr. Sterling is also a co-owner. The reason is, I emphasized each word. I, the primary owner of the majority of the assets, have sufficient grounds to suspect that my husband, Mr. Michael Sterling, is using the joint assets for illegal purposes and committing fraud, and he is currently showing signs of disposing of assets. Fraud, illegal, disposing of assets. I uttered these words clearly and concisely. They were the legal terms Jess had told me to use to force the bank to act in an emergency. The director on the other end was genuinely panicking. Ma'am, please calm down. This matter is very serious. If you say so, according to customer protection regulations, I will immediately notify the system to temporarily block all online and in-person transactions. Please come to the nearest branch tomorrow at 8 a.m. to sign the paperwork. Good. I'll be there tomorrow at 8 a.m., I replied concisely. I don't want a single dollar withdrawn from those accounts from this moment on. Do you understand? Yes, understood. I will process it immediately. I hung up the phone. The room was plunged into immediate silence. I looked at my hand, which was still gripping the phone tightly. It wasn't trembling. For 10 years, I used these 2 hands to cook, do laundry, plant flowers, and give him massages when he said he was tired. Now, with these 2 hands, I was freezing everything that was his. I had cut off his financial lifeline. I had cut off his retreat myself. The $5,000 appetizer at the Gilded Lily was truly expensive. Now, it was time for me to serve the main course. I didn't know how Michael would react when his black card was declined and he found out he couldn't access any accounts, but I knew he would call me soon, and I was ready. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the veranda armchair, looking at the orchid garden shrouded in darkness. My mind was just as dark. Every time I closed my eyes, the 30-second video appeared with cruel clarity. Michael's kiss, Chloe's laugh, and the $5,000 bill were a pantomime mocking the 10 years of my youth I had buried in this estate. At 7:55 a.m., I arrived at the door of Jessica Chen's law firm. My eyes were puffy from the sleepless night, and my unmade-up face was pale. I knew how miserable I looked. Jess came out of the conference room. She was wearing a tailored black suit, her hair pulled back in a high ponytail, making her look sharp and authoritative. Her usual cheerful eyes were gone, replaced by a suppressed rage. She pushed a hot cup of coffee into my hand without a word. "Drink this. You look like a walking ghost." I shook my head. My throat was dry. "I can't." "Did you finish everything?" Jess sat down opposite me, crossing her arms. "Done. At 8 o'clock sharp, I sent your confirmation paperwork to the bank director. Everything is frozen. His black card is now officially a useless piece of plastic." For a moment, a wave of relief washed over me, but it didn't fill the void inside me. "Thank you." Jess looked at me with a piercing gaze. "Ellie, now answer me calmly. I'm asking you as your lawyer, what do you want? Just to give him a warning and vent your anger? Or do you want a divorce?" Divorce. Why did those 2 words sound so foreign and painful? For 10 years, I gave up everything to be that man's wife, shelving my ambition at Vance Landscapes, and now, divorce. I really don't know. As I fell silent, Jess sighed and stood up, pacing the room. "Look at me. If you just want to give him a warning, frankly, Michael will come back. He will kneel, beg for your forgiveness, and swear that heaven and earth will fall before he ever changes again. And then what? And then he'll go back to his old ways. But next time, he'll be more secretive, more cunning. You'll live your entire life in doubt." I looked at Jess. The scene of the kiss at the restaurant replayed in my mind. "No, I can't take it anymore." "Then it's divorce. Jess said it as a certainty, not a question. If you decide to divorce, you have to be ready for a fight. Michael is no fool. He and his family won't let you walk away with anything easily. I want a divorce. My voice suddenly became clear. But before I divorce, I want to know exactly what I had for the last 10 years and what he secretly took from me. Jess smiled. It was a cold, calculating smile. Good. This is the Eleanor Vance I know. She pulled up a chair and took out a folder. I did some preliminary investigation. The biggest asset is the estate in Greenwich. It's in both your names. I nodded. The house was essentially a wedding gift from my parents, who had put up most of the money. I froze the joint savings and stock accounts, Jess continued. The problem is, he surely has personal accounts. Do you know his exact salary? I hesitated. He told me the company held his salary and bonuses as escrow funds. Every month, he only gave me $3,000 for household expenses, estate management, and garden maintenance. Jess scoffed. It was a laugh of contempt. $3,000? You believe that, Ellie? He's a senior director in charge of billion-dollar projects, and his salary is only $3,000? You've been played by him for 10 years. I lowered my head. I realized he had not only betrayed me emotionally but had also blatantly deceived me financially. Okay, we'll deal with that later. Jess patted my shoulder. Now, what are you going to do about the biggest asset, the estate? I looked out of Jessica's office window at the busy stream of people below. That house, that garden, it was the passion of my 10 years. But now, it was nothing more than a luxurious cage filled with lies. Sell it, my voice was dry. Put it on the market immediately. But we need to sell it fast before he reacts and can't dispose of more assets. Jess looked at me, her surprise turning into approval. Good, very decisive. I'll call a trusted real estate agent right away. Now go home, eat something, and get some sleep. It looks like a storm is coming. The storm Jess mentioned didn't wait. It arrived that very evening, not the next day. I was sitting numbly on the steps by the koi pond, watching the colorful fish swim. They lived in their little world, fed every day, and would probably never know what betrayal was. My phone, placed on the stone table, began to vibrate. The 2 words my husband appeared on the screen. A name I saved 10 years ago, but now it felt like an unspeakable mockery. I didn't answer the call. I just sat there and watched as the phone rang, stopped, and rang again, as if in a fit of rage. I ignored it and counted. 1 call, 2 calls, 10 calls. My phone rang again when I was discussing the quick sale of the estate with David, the real estate agent Jess had recommended. David, a polite middle-aged man, felt awkward. Mrs. Sterling, aren't you going to answer the phone? It seems urgent. I forced a smile. Oh, it's probably just another real estate ad. I block these kinds of numbers. I put the phone on silent, and we continued talking about prices and procedures. But in my mind, I knew the rage on the other end of the phone was growing. After David left, the house was plunged into silence again. I turned on my phone to check. 66 missed calls. 66. What a beautiful number. I wanted to laugh, but I felt like crying. 66 missed calls. It wasn't because he missed me. It wasn't because he was worried about me. It was because he couldn't spend money anymore. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the multitude of missed call alerts. He had been calling me like a madman for 2 hours. He had probably tried to take his mistress shopping after their extravagant $5,000 meal or pay for a 5-star hotel stay, but it had failed. Just then, a new notification appeared. You have a new voicemail. My heart skipped a beat. What had to come, had come. I took a deep breath, trying to stop my hands from shaking, and brought the phone to my ear. I had to listen. I had to know his reaction. After a beep, Michael's voice roared out. It was no longer the loving whisper or the calm of a senior director. It was the howl of a wounded beast. No, a hungry beast. Eleanor Vance. Are you out of your mind? How dare you cancel my card without my permission? Don't you know I'm entertaining an important client right now? Is it that much fun for you to humiliate me like this? I closed my eyes. Entertaining an important client. Even at this moment, he was lying. The The same old pretext. What the hell are you playing at? Activate the card again and put money in my accounts. Now, stop making a fool of yourself. Answer your phone. Answer it now. A dry click, and the voicemail ended. Only a long beep followed, then the chilling silence of the room. I listened to the voicemail again, once, twice, and 3 times. In that jumbled sound, I tried to search for a trace of regret or concern, but there was nothing, only rage. He wasn't angry because I discovered his infidelity. He was angry because I cut off his money supply. He was angry because I, the homemaker wife he had always looked down on, dared to humiliate him. What was I in his eyes? A luxury housekeeper, or an ATM whose PIN he didn't know? The contempt I felt in that voice hurt me more than the 30-second video. My hands, which had trembled while listening to the voicemail, were now completely calm. I saved the recording without deleting it. I would need it later. Instead of hitting the redial button in a panic, I went to my messaging app. I changed my profile picture. The photo of the two of us smiling happily on our 5th anniversary was deleted. In its place, I put a picture of myself alone, next to a fully bloomed dendrobium orchid. I was smiling in the picture. Then, I didn't text. I called him directly. He answered almost instantly, as if he had been glued to his phone waiting for my call. "Eleanor, you." He tried to shout again, but before he could finish, I spoke. Yes, my voice was clear, calm, and cold. My composure seemed to startle him. "You? What are you playing at?" he stammered, his rage seeming to falter. "What are you doing? Activate the accounts again. I'm in real trouble now." "I'm not playing with you either," I replied. I stood up and walked to the veranda, looking at the garden to which I had dedicated all my passion. "I'm not playing, Mr. Sterling. I'm doing an adult job that I should have done a long time ago." "What? What is it?" He was completely confused. This was not the scenario he expected. He expected me to cry, scream with jealousy, and make a scene. Not this calm tone, as if talking to a stranger. "I only have one question," I continued. "How did your top-secret geological survey in Scottsdale, Arizona, fly all the way to the Upper East Side in Manhattan?" There was silence on the other end, a chilling silence. I could hear his heavy breathing over the phone. He was trying to piece together the next lie. "You? What nonsense are you talking about?" His voice suddenly became lower. He was no longer shouting but probing. The panic was evident. "Who? Who told you that nonsense?" "Oh," I drew out my voice sarcastically. "Perhaps your business partner said so, the light brown-haired partner in a red dress sitting at the Gilded Lily. Isn't it a bit extravagant to entertain with a $5,000 meal?" "You were spying on me?" His voice immediately turned menacing. The rage of being caught replaced the confusion. "It doesn't matter to me," I replied, my voice icy. "Your job is to entertain well." "Oh, and I forgot to inform you of one thing." "What thing?" he asked warily. "The estate in Greenwich," I said and smiled. I knew he couldn't see me, but I felt a strange satisfaction. "I've put it up for sale. The real estate agent called me this morning and said there are clients offering a good price. We'll probably sign the escrow contract this weekend." "What?" This time he really screamed, a high-pitched shriek filled with extreme panic and rage. "Are you insane, Eleanor Vance? How dare you? That's my house. It's our house. You have no right to do that when I get back to the U.S. When I get back to the U.S. You also had no right to rent out a restaurant to spend our money on your mistress." I raised my voice. I no longer maintained my composure. "I've frozen the accounts, canceled the black card, and the house will be sold soon. I hope your survey was enjoyable. Now see how you get back to the U.S. I didn't wait for him to continue ranting. I pressed the end call button with determination. I knew that Michael, cornered, would call his ally, and his biggest ally was none other than his mother, Carol. I had been her daughter-in-law for 10 years. I understood this family very well. They had a strange sense of unity, especially when it came to protecting the interests of their precious golden son. An hour after my tense phone call with Michael, my phone rang again. This time, the screen showed Mom. At some point, I saved this name with all the respect of a new daughter-in-law. Now, seeing it only gave me infinite fatigue. I took a deep breath, trying to sound as normal as possible, and answered, "Yes, Mom." Immediately, without a greeting, miserable crying poured into my ear through the phone. It sounded like the wailing from a soap opera my mother-in-law loved to watch. "Oh my God. Eleanor, Eleanor, how could you do this to your husband? Will you only be satisfied when that boy dies on the street?" I remained silent, letting her cry. This was an act I had seen for 10 years. Every time there was a small conflict in our marriage, she would use tears to resolve it. And the result was always that I had to apologize, even if it wasn't my fault. Since I didn't react, her crying stopped as abruptly as turning off a radio. She switched to a sharp tone. "Are you going to keep playing dumb? Michael just called me, and he was crying. He said you froze his card and his accounts. What are you doing? Who do you think that boy is suffering for? It's for this house. It's for you. How could you be such an unreasonable and inconsiderate woman?" Unreasonable. I repeated those 2 words. They were like a dull knife stabbing into my ear. I laughed, a cold laugh. "Mom, am I the unreasonable one? Or is Mr. Sterling the unreasonable one? He told me he went to Scottsdale to do a survey, but he used my hard-earned $5,000 to have dinner at a luxury restaurant on the Upper East Side with another woman. In your eyes, he's suffering for me?" There was a chilling silence on the other end. I knew Michael would never have told his mother these costly details, but I underestimated her. Carol was a seasoned actress, and after a few seconds of surprise, she immediately changed the script. The crying returned, this time more miserable. "Oh, daughter, daughter, I know you're hurting, but daughter, you have to understand men. Who can't fall into temptation? Maybe he made a temporary slip-up. If you make a big scene like this, people will laugh at our family. You have to close the door and solve it privately, daughter. Patience is a woman's virtue. If you sell the house, where will the children grow up later? Think again." "Slip up?" I felt like crying, but I actually laughed. "Mom, where is there a $5,000 slip-up? I sacrificed my career at Vance Landscapes to serve at home, and he's using my money to entertain a young woman half my age." She stopped crying again and turned vicious. "What are you saying so disrespectfully? How dare you talk to your mother-in-law like that?" "I'm not talking disrespectfully," I cut her short. My voice was now colder than ice. "I'm just telling the truth. I can no longer be the cash cow that the whole family makes fun of. I'm stopping the bleeding of this family before your son uses my hard-earned money for another woman. I'm tired. I'm hanging up." "How dare you?" she screamed. "If you don't reactivate the accounts now, don't blame me for turning into a wicked woman. I'll come to your house right now." I didn't give her a chance to continue threatening. I hung up the phone with determination. I slumped onto the cold floor. Infidelity. That's how all men are. It turned out they all knew. They knew and they defended him. They took my sacrifice for granted and considered his betrayal a small mistake. This whole family was rotten from the root. I no longer had any doubts. After the call with Carol, I sat numbly on the cold floor for hours. This whole family was not just defenders, they were accomplices. Together, they staged a play, and I was the only stupid character who believed it was real. The pain of emotional betrayal had now turned into rage at the betrayal of intimacy and trust. For 10 years as a daughter-in-law, I considered Carol my own mother, but what I got was a knife in the back. I no longer cried. Maybe my tears dried up last night, or maybe the rage froze them. I just felt an infinite disgust. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes. I tried to swallow some oatmeal, but my throat was dry. Carol's call last night was like a poison. It killed my last affection, my last illusion about the family I tried to hold on to. As I was sitting soullessly in my orchid garden, my phone buzzed. It was a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. I didn't want to open it, but I felt a premonition. I clicked. The WhatsApp account name was Baby Chloe. The profile picture was a selfie of a young woman pouting. And the first message, without a greeting, was just a picture taken on a 5-star yacht. Behind it, the blue sea and clear sky. Chloe, Michael's mistress, was wearing a red bikini, flaunting her youth and vitality. She was smiling with a winner's smile, but what made me freeze was the clear image of Michael reflected in her designer sunglasses. He was shirtless, holding a wine glass, taking her picture. That man, my husband, the same one who screamed at me yesterday that he was humiliated because he had no money. The same one his mother cried about, saying he was suffering far away. It turned out they still had cash. They planned this trip meticulously. They were enjoying and celebrating their triumph with my hard-earned money. My hands trembled. I was her age once too, and I was also the pride of the brilliant Vance landscapes. But I left that brilliance to choose to be a wife, to choose to be a homemaker. It turned out I was just a foolish safekeeper, guarding the money so he could give it to another woman. Ding. Another message came. Still from her. Mrs. Sterling. Mr. Sterling said you're a wise person. He said that, now that you're older, you should know when to let go if you want to keep your last bit of dignity. I stared at the sentence. Older, dignity. She was trying to provoke me. She wanted me to go crazy, to make a scene, so she could have a pretext to play the role of the innocent victim bullied by the old wife. I looked at the picture for 10 seconds. There was no rage, no jealousy, only a disgust like seeing a triumphant fly sitting on a plate of cold food. I didn't reply, I didn't curse. I did two things silently. First, I saved the picture and her message. I sent them to a separate email folder titled Evidence. Second, I deleted the chat and blocked her phone number. This childish provocation did not deserve my attention. My fight was not a social media comeback. My fight was a legal battle, a battle for assets. I didn't need the dignity she offered me. I needed to take back everything that was mine. My fight was the asset, and the biggest asset was this estate. The place where I was standing was the product of my 10 years of passion and my parents' wedding gift that cost almost their entire fortune. I could not let it fall into their hands. I called David, the real estate agent Jess had recommended, again. My voice was calm and clear. Mr. David, I've thought about it. I've decided to sell urgently. Can you speed up the process to sell it quickly? Even if we have to lower the market price a bit. David seemed surprised by my determination, but he was a professional. He just said, Mrs. Sterling, don't worry, your house is a rare gem. It's well located, and you, the landscape architect, designed the garden personally. The clients who saw the photos and 3D videos I took are all captivated. I smiled sadly. Captivated. I was the person who loved this house the most. Mr. David, this orchid garden is the soul of the house. Tell the clients, if they really want to buy the house, please maintain it. Rest assured, David replied, I'll find you a worthy new owner. I thought a quick sale would take weeks, even months, but I was wrong. The power of money and the appeal of this house were much greater than I thought. Just 2 days later, David called me again. He sounded elated, as if he had won the lottery. Mrs. Sterling, I have good news. Very good news. My heart pounded. What is it? We have a client. It's not just any client, David almost shouted over the phone. It's a heavyweight client. They are Americans who have just moved back to the U.S. and said they were speechless when they saw the photos and 3D videos I sent. They said the house has very good energy, and the orchid garden you designed is so beautiful. They said it's also very compatible with the lady's horoscope. I listened silently. David continued excitedly, They don't want to come see the house multiple times. They said they trust your design and want to put down the escrow deposit immediately. They didn't haggle a single penny on the asking price. They only have one request. What request? I was anxious. They said they want to buy your entire orchid garden. David hesitated. They said the house would lose its soul without that garden. They are willing to pay an additional $30,000 for all your precious orchids and maintenance costs. They asked you not to take anything and leave it as it is. $30,000. I stood there stunned. My 10 years of youth, the 10 years I gave up Vance Landscapes, the 10 years of watering, fertilizing, and pruning were valued at $30,000. It was ridiculous, but at the same time, I felt acknowledged. At least someone recognized the value of my silent sacrifice, even if they didn't know the story behind it. Okay, my voice was choked. Tell them. I agree. I'll leave everything. Excellent, David rejoiced. So, Can we schedule the signing of the escrow contract for this weekend? They want to pay 90% in cash in one go. I hung up the phone and looked at the garden. For 10 years it was my joy and pride, and the gilded cage that trapped me. Now it was the conduit that set me free. Goodbye, my private Vance landscapes. Thank you for giving me my first $30,000 to start a new life. The news that I had frozen the accounts and put the estate up for sale spread miraculously faster than the wind. I assumed Michael and his mother, in their rage, must have called everyone they knew to slander me, pressuring me to look like the cruel and heartless wife, and the well-meaning people began to appear. The first call was from Laura, Michael's cousin. I always respected her for her understanding and gentle tone of voice. Eleanor, her voice on the other end was full of awkwardness. Your cousin heard your story. Michael was wrong. He was very wrong. I gave him a stern scolding, but, Eleanor, she hesitated. I remained silent and waited. You're a woman, you have to understand. Men sometimes can't help temptation when they're away. He made a mistake. If you make a big scene like this, people will laugh at our family. Close the door and resolve it privately. Patience is more important than a husband for a woman. If you sell the house, where will the children grow up later? Think again. I hung up the phone. I didn't want to hear anymore. Patience. I was patient for 10 years. I was patient to the point of losing my career and my youth. And now I was supposed to be patient so he could give my money to his mistress. The second call was from Andrew, Michael's best friend. This time, it was the tone of an understanding man. Eleanor, it's Andrew. I gave that bastard Michael a piece of my mind. But you're his wife. You have to understand his temperament. If you cut off all his money, how is he supposed to live and do business? He's trapped abroad, and if he does something impulsive, it's not good for you if he collapses. You have to give him a way out. A way out. I felt like crying, but I laughed. Who gave me a way out when I gave up Vance Landscapes to be a homemaker? Who gave me a way out when he embraced a young mistress at the Gilded Lily? Who left me a way out when his whole family defended him and treated me like a fool? I didn't answer Andrew. I hung up again, and then came a flood of persuasive messages from college classmates and the next-door neighbor, who was concerned that I hadn't been looking happy lately. They all advised me to calm down, to think again, to forgive. I was sick of it. I was sick of this hypocritical advice. They didn't live my life. They weren't in this house. They don't know what I endured for the last 10 years. They were just standing outside judging. I turned off my phone. I was too tired to talk to anyone else. I wanted to be alone. I went into my studio, a room I had barely entered for the last 10 years. There was a thin layer of dust on the bookshelf, and there were my books on landscape architecture, bonsai art, and garden feng shui. And on the wall hung the first 3D design plan of Vance Landscapes, which I finished after working all night. It was once my pride and ambition. I sat down and turned on the computer. It had been too long since I had touched the design software. My hands trembled a little, but my brain seemed to wake up. I opened a new file and started drawing. I drew a rooftop garden on a sun-drenched skyscraper, with hanging orchids and a small koi pond. I was drawing my new life. Once finished, I opened my messaging app without thinking. I posted just one picture, the screenshot of the 3D design I had just finished, and wrote a single status. First sketch for a new life. Rebooting Vance Landscapes. I turned my phone back on. There were no text messages or calls. For the first time in 24 hours, my phone was silent. The well-meaning people had gone quiet. They no longer advised me to forgive. They knew I wasn't playing games. I wasn't just leaving Michael, I was rebuilding my own empire. My post successfully silenced the persuasion of my friends and relatives, but it also became the fuse that lit the dying powder keg of Michael Sterling. He had now completely become that man a stranger, an enemy in my mind. He had failed to use his mother to pressure me. He had failed to persuade me through his friends. Now he decided to confront me himself. He was surely still trapped abroad without a penny in his pocket. The rage of being cut off financially, coupled with the shock that I dared to publicly sell the house and restart my career, had turned him into a beast. The first message came from an unknown WhatsApp account. The name Hawk meant nothing to me, but I was sure it was him. I had already blocked his real account. Eleanor Vance, You're really something. How dare you put my house up for sale? How dare you announce your new life? Who do you think you are to use that old name Vance Landscapes again? I read the message. Still rage. Still arrogance. He still thought I was the weak kitten from 10 years ago. He still thought I would be afraid of him. I didn't reply. I did only one thing. I screenshotted it and sent it to Jess. Additional evidence. Threatening content saved. A few hours later, since I didn't reply, a second message came. This time, the language was more vulgar and threatening. Playing dumb with me? You think you can sell the house without my signature? Dream on. When I get back to the US, I won't forgive you. How dare you touch my assets? How dare you touch my mother? You'll see. I'll make you kneel and beg for my forgiveness. I read the message, but my heart didn't stir. I won't forgive you. I haven't been at peace for the last 10 years. I lived in a false peace bought at the cost of my career and my pride. Now, I'd rather be myself than have a false peace. I screenshotted it again and sent it to Jess. Threat evidence. A day passed, and I didn't reply. His rage couldn't solve his hunger or turn into a plane ticket. He began to be afraid. A man accustomed to luxury and being served, now trapped in an unknown place without money. Rage could not overcome desperation, and around midnight, the third message came. This time, it wasn't from a fake account, but from an unknown phone number. He had probably borrowed it from someone. The tone had completely changed. Ellie, honey. Those two words made me nauseous. The man who was threatening and snarling at me just a moment ago was now trying to put on a pathetic face. Ellie, I was wrong. That girl, she tricked me. I fell into her trap, believe me. As I read, I just laughed. Even at this moment, he was still blaming someone else. He still thought I was a fool who would easily fall for a few sweet words. The next message came immediately, as if he was afraid I wouldn't read it. Ellie, I really don't have any money. I'm stuck here. I'm so hungry, honey. Don't you have any affection left for me? And then came the knockout punch I was sure of. It's 10 years. 10 years of marriage. How can you do this? 10 years. He dared to mention 10 years. The 10 years I buried my youth in the kitchen. The 10 years I gave up my ambition. The 10 years I worked like a slave for his family. He was trying to exchange those 10 years for a plane ticket and forgiveness for his $5,000 meal with his mistress at a restaurant. Ellie, open the accounts for me so I can come back. Just give me money for a plane ticket. Let's come back and talk. I'll fix everything. I'll kick that girl out. I'll kneel and beg for your forgiveness. Ellie. I looked at the phone screen. My heart was coldly hardened. Affection. The word sounded so cheap coming from his mouth. I screenshotted it again and sent it to Jess. This time, I titled it, Additional Evidence, Feigned Pleading. I turned off my phone and threw it on the velvet sofa. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, a heavy, tired beat. Michael's false pleading did not move me. Instead, it filled me with disgust. 10 years. He dared to mention 10 years of affection? Yes, 10 years. I had to find out how he valued those 10 years. The post about Vance Landscapes was a momentary impulse of rage, but now it reminded me of who I was. I was not just a crying homemaker. I was an architect once, someone who worked with numbers and logic. Now was the time to use that logic to price this marriage. I went into Michael's study, a room I had barely set foot in for 10 years. He always said it was his private space that I shouldn't touch. The smell of tobacco and old paper stung my nose. I turned on the light. Everything was artificially tidy. I opened the drawer of the mahogany desk where he kept important documents. Of course it was locked, but I had been his wife for 10 years. I knew where he kept the spare key. Under the money plant in the corner of the room, the arrogance of a man who thought himself clever and that his homemaker wife would never find it. I opened the drawer. The documents were neatly arranged in folders, contracts, insurance, and bank statements from numerous accounts whose existence I didn't even know. He told me $3,000 a month was all the family's expenses and that it was a sacrifice for me. It turned out that was just the tip of the iceberg. I sat on the floor and spread everything out. my eyes fixed on the numbers. My already cold heart now felt like someone was squeezing it. 9-figure expense accounts, cash withdrawals, and entertainment expenses that happened weekly, and here was his official salary account. The real number was 5 times the number he told me. 5 times. I wanted to laugh, but I felt like crying. I lived in a gigantic deception. I was not his wife. I was a luxury housekeeper paid $3,000 a month to take care of this estate and this garden, while he built another home with our money, the money I saved by giving up Vance Landscapes. The $5,000 meal at the Gilded Lily was not a mistake. It was a habit, and it was just one of countless entertainment expenses I had no knowledge of. I was so foolish to fall for the strong support system at home. I trusted the promise of "you stay home, and I'll take care of everything in the world." It turned out he was really taking care of everything in his world, a world without me. I sat in the pile of documents until the first ray of sunlight shone through the crack in the door. The coffee had long gone cold. I felt disgusted, but I couldn't stop. I had to know everything, and my eyes stopped on a transfer record, a recurring transfer record. It wasn't as large as the other expense accounts, only $3,000, but it was as regular as clockwork. My eyes, already dry from the sleepless night, felt pricked by the letters. Internal transfer. Beneficiary: Mrs. Brenda Miller. Amount: $3,000. Exactly the same amount he gave me every month to take care of this estate, the bills, the housekeeper's expenses, and the garden maintenance. He was transferring the exact same amount to another woman named Mrs. Brenda Miller. A newly betrayed woman's instinct whispered to me that this was not a simple problem. With trembling hands, I moved the mouse and checked the transaction history. June 15th, May 15th, April 15th. I scrolled back, and my heart began to beat wildly. This was not a recent expense. It had been ongoing. I kept scrolling. My mind grew colder and colder. 2 years. Oh my God. For 2 years without fail, exactly $3,000 was transferred on the 15th of every month. I quickly pulled out the calculator and typed $3,000 multiplied by 24 months. $72,000. $72,000. Who was I? Who was Mrs. Brenda Miller? I racked my memory. Mrs. Brenda Miller, a completely unfamiliar name. She was not my relative, let alone Michael's. I was sure. A friend? No one transfers $3,000 to a friend every month for 2 years. A chill ran down my spine. This was not a slip-up, as Carol said. This was not infidelity. This was a plan, a systematic, long-term plan. He was not just having an affair. He was supporting another woman. He was investing our money, the hard-earned money I saved by giving up Vance Landscapes, in another woman. This betrayal was far more cruel than the 30-second video. The kiss at the Gilded Lily could be lust, but $72,000 transferred over 2 years was calculation, intentional deception, and a complete disregard for me. Who did they think I was? An idiot? An ATM who was a burden to her husband at home? I didn't cry. I couldn't cry anymore. I just felt rage, a cold rage that surged from the depths of my heart. This rage was enough to burn these 10 years of false marriage. I didn't call Michael. I didn't text him insults. I did only one thing. I screenshotted all the transaction records to Mrs. Brenda Miller from the first month to the last. I screenshotted the total number, $72,000. I sent everything to Jess with a single-line message. Jess, find out what kind of monster Mrs. Brenda Miller is and what that man has been supporting with my $72,000 for the last 2 years. I sent the message. It was 6 a.m. I knew Jess was an early riser who exercised, even if she worked all night. I didn't expect an immediate reply. I had to shower. My body smelled of hatred and cold sweat from the sleepless night. I stood under the shower. The hot water poured over my body, but I felt no warmth, only cold, bone-chillingly cold. $72,000. The number kept circling in my head. He took it from me. He took $72,000 from us. For 10 years living at home, I was frugal. I refused to buy designer bags. I refused luxury trips because he said we had to save for the future. It turned out the future he mentioned was his future with another woman. As soon as I stepped out of the bathroom with a towel around my hair, my phone rang loudly. It was a call from Jess. Her voice on the other end was not that of a lawyer but of a friend so furious she was losing her composure. "Are you sitting or standing right now?" Jessica's voice was trembling. "Standing. Tell me, do you have the results?" I replied calmly, containing my wildly beating heart. "Sit down," Jess almost screamed into the phone. "Sit down right now." I slumped onto the edge of the bed. "Mrs. Brenda Miller," Jess took a deep breath, as if trying to hold back a curse. 60 years old. From the outskirts of New York. No stable employment. 60 years old. I felt more confused. Michael would never do that. "Who is she?" My voice cracked. Jess was silent for a few seconds. Then she said each word clearly, as if afraid I wouldn't hear her. "Ellie. She's Chloe's mother." Chloe's mother. My phone fell and landed silently on the wool carpet, but something exploded in my ears. Chloe's mother. The mother of the 20-year-old intern. The mother of the woman in the 30-second video. $72,000. $3,000 a month to the mistress's mother. I could no longer feel what my emotions were. It wasn't pain. It was disgust. A nauseating disgust. He wasn't just having an affair. He didn't just make a mistake. He was playing the role of a dutiful son to his mistress's mother with my money. With my money. I picked up the phone. Jess was still shouting on the other end. "Do you understand what I'm saying? That bastard, that son of a bitch was supporting not just his mistress, but her entire family, do you understand? $3,000 a month. That old woman was living like a queen in the countryside. He was using your hard-earned money, the money you sacrificed Vance Landscapes for, to support another family. Ellie, are you listening to me?" "I'm listening." My voice was strangely calm. "I'm listening, and I understand everything." "What do you understand?" Jess stopped, surprised by my composure. "I understand." I stood up and walked to the closet. "He hasn't been my husband for a long time. He's been a thief and a con man. When the truth finally comes out, no matter how cruel, people no longer feel pain. They are only left with rage and a single goal." "Jess," I cut her off, "prepare the divorce papers." "But I don't just want a divorce. I don't just want half the assets. I want everything. I'll make him pay for these 10 years of my youth, principal plus interest." I arrived at Jessica's office at 9 a.m. I was not the soulless, puffy-eyed woman from a few days ago. I wore the white suit I used to defend the first Vance Landscapes project. My hair was pulled back, and my makeup was carefully applied. I was here not as a betrayed wife, but as a partner coming to discuss an important deal. Jess looked at me, and her gaze changed from surprise to respect. "You're really incredible. I was worried you'd lock yourself at home crying or do something foolish." I smiled coldly. "Cry, Jess? Tears can't bring back $72,000. "Good." Jess tapped the desk with a pen. "Then let's get to work. With this $72,000 evidence, we can not only file for divorce, but also for disposition of marital assets and fraud during the marriage. If we go to trial, you'll definitely get the majority of the assets. He won't be able to hold his head up. You just have to sign here." Jess slid a folder toward me. Just as I was about to pick up the pen, Jess suddenly said, "Wait." I looked at her. "Why?" "No, it's nothing." Jess didn't look at me. Her brow furrowed, her eyes fixed on her computer screen. "I had my secretary recheck the villa's information in the property registry for your urgent sale procedure. Ellie," Jessica's voice suddenly became serious, "come look at this." A premonition, worse than when I heard Mrs. Brenda Miller's name, stirred in my heart. I walked over to Jessica's computer screen. It was the property deed information for my house. "Look at this." Jess pointed to the small print in the notes section. "Your house is mortgaged." "Mortgaged?" I repeated mechanically. "That doesn't make sense. I didn't sign any documents. This house is my parents' money." "It's mortgaged." Jessica's voice was like a wedge. "And not for a small amount. They mortgaged it to borrow $750,000. 75万美元. If $72,000 was a slap, $750,000 was a bullet straight to my head. "No, it's not possible," I screamed. My hard-won composure completely crumbled. Jess, $750 requires my signature. I'm a co-owner. I never— Calm down! Jess grabbed my shoulder and shook me hard. Listen to me. Look at the mortgage date. I squinted and checked the date. 6 months ago. Exactly 6 months ago, Jess said, her voice filled with rage. Remember, did you sign any strange documents 6 months ago? 6 months ago. My head was spinning. 6 months ago. Yes. At that time, Michael told me the company needed a large amount of capital for a major project. He said it was a golden opportunity. He brought a thick folder of documents and told me to sign quickly, saying they were internal documents and his boss was waiting. Oh my God, I collapsed. I signed. He said it was an internal guarantee document. He pointed to where to sign. I didn't read it. Oh Jess, oh Jess. Jess slammed her fist on the desk. The boom sound startled me. That bastard tricked you. He either forged your signature or tricked you into signing a power of attorney or mortgage consent. He took $750,000 from your parents' house. I didn't hear anything else. $72,000 he used to support his mistress. And this $750,000? Where did this $750,000 go? Top secret survey trip to Scottsdale. Project. Suddenly, I understood everything. He didn't go for a survey. He went to release that $750,000. He was planning to escape. He was going to leave with $750,000 and his young mistress, leaving me with a foreclosed house and a gigantic debt. The $5,000 meal at the Gilded Lily was just the celebration of his successful deal. Ellie. Jessica's voice brought me back to reality. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning. Listen to me carefully. This is no longer just a divorce. This is no longer a civil case. She grabbed my hand tightly, emphasizing each word. This is a crime. Your husband is a criminal. Fraud and embezzlement. I looked at Jess. The tears had dried up. The pain was gone, and only a cold emptiness remained. Yes, I said in a hauntingly calm voice. What should I do with a criminal, Jess? What is the procedure for a criminal complaint? Jessica's words resonated in the quiet office. Criminal. Fraud. Each word was like a hammer blow to my chest. $750,000. The number was so large it felt abstract. It was no longer money. It was an abyss. I must have staggered. Jess quickly held me up and sat me down in a chair. Ellie, are you listening to me? You need to calm down. Now is not the time to faint. Calm down? How could I calm down? 6 months ago, I remembered vividly. Michael came home, his face full of excitement. He talked about a golden opportunity, an internal investment project the company only offered to executives. He said it was the chance to change our lives, and I would never have to worry about anything again. He brought a thick folder filled with technical jargon I didn't understand. He flipped through the pages, pointing to an X. He said, "Sign here quickly. My boss is waiting. It's just an internal guarantee procedure. We have to trust each other as a couple, right? Don't you trust me?" I trusted him. I trusted him as I had for the last 10 years. I signed without reading a single word. I signed the power of attorney or the mortgage consent. I signed the death sentence of my marriage and my assets. How stupid I was. Emotional betrayal hurt me, but this financial deception, this cold calculation to embezzle using my absolute trust, filled me with disgust. He was not just a bad husband, he was a professional con man. Jess. I looked at her, and my voice was dry. $72,000 he used to support his mistress. And this $750,000? What was he going to do with this $750,000? Jess looked at me. Her eyes were filled with pity, but also with firmness. You still don't get it. He conned you. He used your parents' house, your asset, to borrow $750,000. He was preparing for his life. He was going to leave with that $750,000 and his mistress, leaving you with a gigantic debt and a house that would be foreclosed on by the bank. I felt my heart stop. Selling the house. Now, selling this house was not revenge, not even to stop the bleeding of marital assets. It was a command. I had to sell this house to the new American client. I needed the 90% cash they promised. I needed that money not to get rich, but to immediately pay off the illegal $750,000 debt to the bank. If I didn't pay, the bank would foreclose, and I, as the co-owner, the person who signed under deception, would be the first to be held responsible. I would lose everything. I would lose the house, my parents' money, and be in debt for life. Michael Sterling. He didn't just want to leave me, he wanted to destroy me. He wanted to bury me alive in that debt and shame. Ellie, Jess grabbed my hand tightly. Listen to me, this fight has changed. It's no longer just a simple civil divorce case, it's a criminal case. You are no longer just a wife demanding justice, but a victim who has to fight for her own freedom. I left Jessica's office as if my feet weren't touching the ground. I don't know how I drove back to the estate. Everything around me seemed to be shrouded in a thick fog. The outside world was still noisy. Cars were still busy, but I was trapped in a glass cage, soundless, emotionless. I slumped onto the steps outside the orchid garden. The $30,000 garden. The garden I was once proud of. Now it was the only thing that could save me. Everything suddenly became clear, cruelly clear. I connected all the dots. 6 months ago, he tricked me into signing the mortgage documents, and the bank dispersed $750,000. He had the money, a gigantic amount, enough to start a new life. He began to spend more brazenly. This business trip was not a sudden trip, it was scheduled. The 15-day top-secret geological survey trip to Scottsdale was a lie, a carefully prepared lie to give him enough time to release the rest of the money and disappear. Taking his mistress was not because she was the reason. She was just the prize he gave himself after a successful fraudulent deal. And the $5,000 meal at the Gilded Lily. Oh my God, I let out a dry laugh. It was not a client entertainment meal, nor a mistake meal. It was a celebration. Michael Sterling was celebrating with my money, in my house, the fact that he had just scammed me out of $750,000. He celebrated his impending escape. He celebrated that I was the fool who didn't know I would soon be deep in gigantic debt. His contempt, his cruelty was beyond the bounds of infidelity. This was calculated malice. He didn't just want my money, he wanted to destroy me. He wanted me to never hold my head up, to live forever in debt and shame. I immediately picked up my phone. My hands were no longer trembling, they were cold and firm. I called David, the real estate agent. "Mr. David?" My voice was calm. "It's Eleanor. Cancel all other house viewings. I've decided. I'm selling it to the American client. Tell them I accept all their conditions. I want to sign the escrow contract this weekend. I need the cash. The sooner the better." David seemed surprised by my determination, but quickly grasped the situation. "Fantastic, ma'am. I'll call them right away. They'll be thrilled to hear this." I hung up the phone. I had no other choice. I had to sell. Selling this house was not for the division of marital assets in a divorce. It was to save my own life. He wanted to bury me alive, but he didn't know. I was the seed, and my Vance landscapes would definitely rise from these ashes. I sat in the estate, now an asset waiting to be sold. I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear any more threats or false pleas from Michael. I didn't want to hear his mother's calculated crying. I needed silence. In that silence, I wondered, what is the man who just scammed $750,000 and is enjoying his business trip with his mistress doing now? I couldn't see him. But later, when everything came to light, I knew that even what I imagined was nothing compared to the cruelty of the real facts. While I was sitting here struggling with a $750,000 debt, Michael and Chloe were on a 5-star yacht in some distant sea. They were living the extravagant and frivolous life he once despised. They drank the most expensive wine, ate the food I never dared to dream of. They spent money like water. They spent my money, the $72,000 he set aside to play the son to Chloe's mother. And probably part of the $750,000 was also spent on shopping. Chloe was transformed from an intern to a queen, dressed in designer clothes, with bags that cost thousands of dollars. But all parties have an end. My phone call, the freezing of the accounts, the cancellation of the black card were like throwing a bucket of cold water on their imperial dream. The black card, the the symbol of Michael's power, was suddenly declined when he tried to pay for the yacht rental the next day. He was stunned. He took out his second and third cards, but all the joint accounts were frozen. His rage, the one that manifested in his 66 missed calls, was real. He couldn't believe his docile wife at home would dare to cut off his lifeline. And the fight began. Not my fight, but theirs. I could imagine how Chloe, the young woman accustomed to wealth and luxury, would react when her gold mine suddenly ran dry. The sweet voice of Mr. Sterling surely turned into a sharp scream. "You promised you could take care of everything. You said the world would be mine if I stayed by your side. And now what? The cards don't work. Who's going to pay the hotel bill? You're a fraud." And Michael, the patriarchal man who always considered himself a king, how could he endure that humiliation? Betrayed financially by his wife, and now bitten by his mistress. I imagined him screaming at her as loudly as he screamed at me over the phone. "Shut up! If you hadn't demanded that $2,000 bag, we would have money for a plane ticket. You're a parasite who only knows how to spend money." Their love, built on my betrayal and my money, was more fragile than sea foam. When the money was gone, only hatred and mutual destruction remained. The $5,000 party at the Gilded Lily was their peak, and this was the hell they created for themselves. I lived in silence for 2 days. In those 2 days, I organized all the Vance Landscapes documents, the old plans, the incomplete contracts. I wiped every trophy, every thank you plaque that was gathering dust. I realized that in 10 years, I not only lost money, but I lost myself. I didn't hear from Michael. He was silent, and Carol was silent too. I assumed they were preparing a bigger storm. On the third day, as I was preparing the documentation for the house sale contract this weekend, my phone buzzed. I was so tired of threats or pleas, but this time it wasn't from Michael. It was a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. The account name was Baby Chloe. I frowned. Her again. Last time it was a provocative bikini picture. And now what? Had she found a solution with Michael and wanted to show off that they were still happy? My first instinct was to block her like last time. I didn't want to get involved with this garbage. But something prompted me. I opened the message. It was not a picture, not a provocation. It was just 3 words sent in a trembling voice. "Mrs. Sterling, save me." I was stunned. Save me? What game was she playing now? I didn't reply. I didn't believe a single tear of hers. A person who willingly accepted $72,000 in support for her mother from another woman's husband was capable of anything. A few minutes later, since I didn't reply, a flood of messages came. This time it was a long paragraph, as if she had written it beforehand and was just waiting to send it. "Ma'am, I was wrong. I don't dare ask for your forgiveness. Just save me. That man, he tricked me. Mr. Sterling is not human. He's a demon." As I read, I just laughed. Demon. A few days ago, wasn't the sophisticated Mr. Sterling her gold mine that provided her with everything to show off to the world? "He ran out of money," was the next message. "You blocked the cards, and he doesn't have a penny. He hit me. He locked me in the hotel. He said if I don't get him money, he would sell me. Ma'am, I'm so scared." I escaped. I'm at the airport now. I don't have a penny. I wasn't a psychologist, but I could piece together the whole picture. The fight on the yacht was over. Michael, without a penny, revealed his true nature. He was no longer a sophisticated gentleman but a cornered tyrant, a bully. And Chloe realized she had bet on the wrong horse. She didn't love Michael. She loved his money. When the money ran out, she had to flee. She was fleeing not just from Michael but from the chaos she helped create. But why was she messaging me? The last message explained everything. "Ma'am, I know you're going to sue him. I have what you need. I have evidence. Evidence that will make that man unable to hold his head up. I can help you. I just ask. Forgive me for the money we received from him. My mother's sin, I will repay. I promise." I stared at the sentence. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. She was not my friend. She was a rat fleeing a sinking ship, looking for a new ship to cling to by selling out her old partner for a low price. She thought she could use me. She didn't know. I also needed a tool just like her. I looked at the message, Mrs. Sterling, save me. Just a few days ago, this same account was sending me bikini pictures, taunting that Mrs. is older. This change of attitude today was truly dramatic. I didn't trust anything that came from her. I believed this was another act, a more cunning trap. I didn't reply. I wanted to see what else she could act out. And as I expected, when I remained silent, she panicked. A flood of messages came as if she was afraid I would block her. Mrs. Sterling, please answer me. I know you hate me. I deserve to be hated. But Mr. Sterling is not human. He's a demon. I remained silent. Demon. Not the sophisticated Mr. Sterling, the gold mine she was showing off to the world just a few days ago. He ran out of money. You blocked the cards, and he doesn't have a penny. He hit me, ma'am. He hit me. It's true. The next message was a picture. A selfie, but not a pretty face. One cheek was swollen and bruised, and there was a long scratch near her mouth. I escaped. I'm at the airport now. I don't have a penny. I'm using borrowed Wi-Fi to message you. He said if I don't get him money, he would sell me. Ma'am, I'm so scared. I was wrong. I was foolish. I just want to go home. I looked at the picture. Should I feel pity? No, I felt no pity, only fatigue. This was the price of greed. She gleefully enjoyed my money. Now she has to pay the price for that party. But I remained patient. I knew this rat didn't come to me crying just to vent. She had to have some bait. And what had to come, came. Ma'am, I know you're going to sue him. I have this. It's evidence that will make that man unable to hold his head up. He hid it in the safe in my apartment, and I stole it. I just ask. Forgive me and my mother for the money we received from him. I will repay it. I promise. I just want to live in peace. Evidence. The knockout punch. I raised the corner of my mouth. This rat was quite smart. She knew she had to take the insurance when she fled. I typed. It was the first time I had ever replied to her. My voice must have been as cold as ice. What airport are you at now? The reply was instant. I'm still trapped abroad. I just escaped to the airport. I don't care where you are, I typed. I also don't care if he hit you. That's your problem, and his. But I'm interested in the evidence you mentioned. Yes, it's true. It's double contracts, tax evasion documents. He said it was his biggest secret, and that's how he got rich. He said if it got out, he would go to jail. Tax evasion, double contracts. A strange emotion stirred in my heart. It turned out the empire he built, the facade of the sophisticated rich director, was built on the foundation of a crime. Monday, 3 p.m., I messaged without hesitation. My lawyer's office, 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Get back to the U.S. however you can. Bring the evidence. We'll talk. I'll go alone. I hung up without waiting for her reply. I knew he would cling to this as his last lifeline. He would still think I was stupid, that I still loved him and wanted to talk privately. He would come with the last hope of being able to turn the situation around with crocodile tears. He didn't know he was walking straight into his own final judgment. 9 a.m. Jessica's office today was different. The air was tense and taut, like a guitar string. I chose a black suit instead of white. I wanted to wear the color of the end. I was sitting there with Jess beside me. Across from us, instead of an empty chair, was the investment fund's lawyer, Mr. Henderson. He had a solemn face and piercing eyes. Michael was 5 minutes late. He opened the door, not guided by Jessica's secretary, but walking in himself, as if it were still the office of someone he knew. But upon seeing me, seeing Jess, and especially seeing Mr. Henderson, he stopped. His appearance was miserable. His beard was unkempt, his hair was greasy, his designer suit was wrinkled and smelled of fear and sweat. He was gaunt, and his eyes were bloodshot and sunken. "Ellie, honey." He tried to put on a pitiful voice. He tried to get closer to me. "Sit down," Jess growled, pointing to the only empty chair in the middle of the room that looked like a defendant's chair. Michael stopped. He looked at me, looked at Mr. Henderson. He began to realize something was wrong. He awkwardly pulled the chair and sat down. "Mr. Michael Sterling." "Good morning," Jess began to speak. Her voice was devoid of emotion. It was a pure lawyer's voice. We are here today to invite Mr. Sterling not to talk about 10 years of affection. Jess pressed the remote, and the large screen on the wall lit up. Let's get straight to the point. The first picture. The 30-second video at the Gilded Lily. The scene where he kissed Chloe. Michael closed his eyes and gritted his teeth. This is I. Next, Jess pressed the remote. The bikini picture on the yacht with Chloe's provocative message. Silence. Jess cut him off. Just look at the screen. She moved to the next slide. The bank statement. The words Mrs. Brenda Miller $3,000 were circled in red. A table calculating the total of $72,000. Michael began to turn pale. Next, the screen changed to the estate's mortgage contract, the number $750,000 enlarged, and next to it, the result of the signature evaluation, Mrs. Eleanor Sterling's signature is concluded to have been inserted into the document in a non-comprehensive mental state or forged. That's nonsense. Michael started shouting. You signed it yourself. You? I still try to lie. I opened my mouth. It was the first time since he entered. My voice was calm, but my eyes stared at him. You said it was an internal guarantee document, right? Michael was speechless. He looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. And finally, Jess pressed the last slide. The folder of double contracts Chloe brought, the difference in the amounts, the signatures, the stamps. This time, Michael didn't scream. He just sat there panting. Sweat was pouring down. He knew there was no way to deny it. At that moment, Mr. Henderson, the lawyer from J Capital, opened his mouth. His voice was low and firm. Mr. Michael Sterling, I represent J Capital Investment Fund. We have obtained all these documents. We are officially reporting Mr. Sterling for commercial fraud and embezzlement. You have deceived us for 5 years. No, Mr. Henderson. I was deceived. That girl, Chloe, she seduced me. Michael turned to me, tried to crawl out of the chair and kneel. Ellie, save me. Tell Mr. Henderson, save me. 10 years. It's 10 years. I looked at him. The man I once loved was crawling at my feet like a miserable dog. My heart didn't stir. There was no pity, no satisfaction, only a void. Mr. Sterling, I said, you don't need to beg me or Mr. Henderson. The person you need to talk to is not us. Michael was left with a panicked expression. Just then, the conference room door opened. 2 uniformed officers and 2 plainclothesmen walked in. Mr. Michael Sterling, good afternoon, said one of the plainclothesmen who seemed to be the commander, showing his badge. We are the Economic Crimes Unit. We received a report of your tax evasion and fraud. Please come with us to the headquarters for questioning. Michael was petrified. He looked at the 2 police officers, then at me. The look was no longer pleading. It was hatred, extreme hatred. But it was too late. 2 cold silver handcuffs snapped around his hands. He was led past me. My 10 years of marriage, my 10 years of youth, my Vance landscapes that I had given up, officially concluded with the dry click of handcuffs. 6 months later, I heard news of him through Jess. The trial was held behind closed doors, but the result was known to all. Michael Sterling was sentenced to a total of 18 years for the charges of fraud for embezzling $750,000 from me, fraud against J Capital, and tax evasion of an especially large amount. 18 years for a life of greed and falsehood. His mother, Carol, couldn't overcome the shock of her golden son's conviction. She suffered a stroke and was paralyzed on one side. I heard from old neighbors that she was now bedridden, crying and cursing, but no one cared anymore. That was probably the karma she deserved for defending her son's crimes. Chloe, due to her honest confession, the handover of evidence, and her proactive effort to repair the damage by returning the entire $72,000 Michael gave her mother for support, received a suspended sentence for complicity and consumption of goods obtained through crime. It is said that she disappeared from the city and returned to her hometown to live another life. I no longer felt hatred. I also felt no satisfaction. I just felt that everything had returned to its course. You reap what you sow. I was standing in my new office. It wasn't the rented apartment, it was the official office of Vance Landscapes. It wasn't large, a small loft in an old building, but it was filled with sunlight. The walls were covered with design plans. They had been forgotten for 10 years, but my skills didn't disappear. They were like a seed, buried under the rubble of marriage. Now that the storm had passed, it began to sprout. Jess walked in with 2 cups of coffee in her hand. "What's wrong? You just got the landscape design contract for the entire new city across the river. Why are you so serious?" I smiled and took the coffee. "I was just thinking about what kind of trees to use for the central lake. Phalaenopsis or dendrobium orchids?" Jess laughed out loud. "Orchids again. But seeing you now makes me feel that this is the Eleanor Vance I knew." I looked out the window. The sky was very blue today. People were still busy, but my heart was surprisingly at peace. I sold my $30,000 orchid garden, but I got back my entire sky. I didn't need to do any charity work to prove I was okay. I just had to live well and do my job well. For 10 years as a homemaker, I learned how to take care of a garden. Now I would use that skill to take care of my life and make other people's lives more beautiful. I took a deep breath. The smell of coffee, of paper, and the smell of freedom. My real life had just begun.